super excited to do this video regardless and just get the information out there to whoever needs it. Because if you have a trauma bond with somebody but you understand what it is, you'll be much more aware of what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. And things will start to make sense for once. So even if you have this pull towards a toxic bond, you'll at least have the self-awareness to make better decisions for yourself. All right, so let's get into it. So what is a trauma bond? A trauma bond is a very intense emotional connection to somebody, which is harming, most likely destroying you, but you just don't know how to walk away. So you find it almost impossible to walk away and you don't know how, you don't know why. I'm just going to read the definition to you guys before I get into it. So trauma bonding occurs as the result of ongoing cycles of abuse in which the intermittent reinforcement of reward and punishment creates powerful emotional bonds that are resistant to change. So a trauma bond is formed through intense emotional experiences when there is no consistency in the love that's being given to you. And it holds you emotionally captive to a manipulator who keeps you hostage through emotional or physical abuse. So this emotional roller coaster consists of punishment and random acts of kindness as a reward when you behave. So this means you have high levels of stress hormone cortisol through punishment and dopamine from the affection or the reward. So basically when you get an extreme amount of love or affection, you experience this very high, kind of like a drug experience. And when it gets taken away from you, you crash and you spend forever trying to recreate that experience, and you basically think that this is the only person who's going to be able to recreate that experience for you, and all other relationships in comparison just start looking dull and like lackluster to you. So a classic example would be the love bombing tactic that a narcissist use, which I'll get into in my narcissist video in the future. But what they do is they love bomb you very heavily to create this euphoric love high, and then the next minute they'll grab you by the throat and slam you through the depths of the fucking earth. Maybe literally, definitely metaphorically. So for example, they'll be overly affectionate and so loving to you one minute, and then the next minute they're very cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. You get the point. And when these two extremes happen within your mind, it creates an addiction, a trauma bond. And there are articles on this comparing trauma bonds to drug addiction. You can definitely become addicted to a person to the point of withdrawals and physical symptoms. And if you don't know what you're going through, it can really feel like you're just going through a soul loss. So it feels like you can't be without this person and you just really need to be with them. So this really starts taking a toll on your body, and your body may start to shut down. People start struggling with chronic pain, migraines, arthritis, chest pains, and overall your immune system just becomes much weaker, but the victim stays regardless because they don't even know what's going on. They don't even know what's really causing it. And because of the trauma bond and gaslighting, the victim is usually backed up into a corner and just facing like a dark wall, and they can only see what they've done wrong. Even if they haven't done anything wrong, that's all they can see. And even though there's all this light around them, they can't look away from this dark wall. They're paralyzed, you know, they just have to turn their neck, but they are paralyzed. It's kind of like Jessica Jones and Kilgrave, but that's a whole nother video, I think. So trauma bonds can happen with anyone, not just with narcissists, and it can occur in any type of relationships, not just romantic. Actually, there's a YouTuber that I love. Her channel is New Mind Frame. I'll leave a link down to her below. And in her trauma bond video, she talks about how someone can be hot and cold unintentionally. And this can be a person with fearful, avoidant attachment style. So she does do videos on all the attachment styles. I highly recommend you guys watch that. So anyways, a person with fearful avoidance style, it's in their nature to be hot and cold. They're not doing it intentionally to abuse you or be manipulative. They just have a fear of love themselves, and they have this hot and cold, distant, not distant, you know, back and forth. She also mentions cognitive dissonance. So this is when you have two opposing beliefs in your mind, and your mind is just so uncomfortable with that it tries to explain one of the beliefs away, which explains why victims go so hard to defend and get consumed with denial. Anyway, she gives a lot of very good specific examples. I would definitely recommend you checking her out, so I will leave a link to her down below. So you'll know you're in a trauma bond because you feel trapped, which is something that you'll hear a lot of victims or survivors say. I feel trapped. I don't know. I just feel so trapped. I felt like I couldn't leave. I felt like I couldn't go. Like you really feel like a prisoner of your own mind, of your own self, you know? You know you can physically walk away at any time, and you can even consciously, a lot of the times, most of the time, these people are consciously aware that they should be walking away, they need to leave, this person is terrible, this person is evil, they're just bad for them, whatever the case is. but they just cannot find it in themselves to leave. And when they do leave, they find themselves in shambles and they're broken. It's definitely a much, much, much more intensified version of an actual breakup. It feels like you're going to die. You really feel like you're going to die, you know. It really is a withdrawal to your body. You know, there are people who commit suicide over this, so it's definitely not something to take lightly or make into a joke. Okay? Please, thank you. And unfortunately, many people are just so bonded to their abusers that even when they do leave, they actually end up going back to them. Even upwards to like 2 years can pass by, a few years can pass by, and they still have that bond that ties them back to them because they haven't fully healed themselves. So, you know, this is the importance of healing and being by yourself and just really healing from your traumas, because it can definitely open back up in your next relationship if you don't deal with